Three.
All yours.
Should I put up the screen?
I'm sorry?
I'll put up we'll start with,
PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
okay,
let's start with the
okay,
first
okay.
morning.
Let me get this set up first. Okay. Okay, there you go.
Good morning.
Can everybody see that?
Yes, good.
Good morning. I'm Howie Lee, and I'm a KHN member. And today we're going to talk a little bit about my experiences as a medical missionary in Central America and the Dominican Republic. This is a picture of me near Bold Hope World Headquarters. Not much to look at, but it's one of our home away from homes. And what I've done for the past 20 years is provide care to Haitian refugees in the Dominican Republic. And learned a lot about Haiti, about the Dominican Republic, about American corporations, and also unexpectedly about Jewish values and the Jews of the Dominican Republic. Next. All right. So I've been practicing pulmonary and sleep disorders medicine in Bucks County since 1986. Pretty much brought sleep medicine to Bucks County and was one of the early pulmonologists. I still work full time. And in my spare time, I participate in medical missions. And I've done this for the past 20 years or so. And I've been countless times to the Dominican Republic, and we've been elsewhere from Nicaragua to Honduras to various locations in Central America. Next. Okay, currently for the past decade or so, I've been working with a local organization out of Doylestown called Bold Hope. And Bold Hope is interesting. It's the first organization that I work with that has a presence 365 days a year in places like the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And they work alongside local partners, not only to provide medical care, but really to provide education and food sustenance. In 2010, after Haiti was pretty much destroyed by an earthquake, I was at that time working with another organization called Dominican Dreams. And we were there, and it was pretty devastating. 250,000 people were died, and 1 million people lost their homes. Before this happened, Haiti was the poorest country in the Americas. And obviously, this didn't help the situation much. Today, Haiti has, as everybody is aware, tremendous upheaval, and it is a lawless place. Bold Hope does have a presence there, but it's only locals there. No American participants can go there anymore. It's just too crazy. So what we do instead is we serve the diaspora. You know, when we think of diaspora, we usually think of Jews, but there are probably close to 1 million Haitians who are in the Dominican Republic trying to survive. And that's where I focus my efforts. Next, Abe. Okay. So from 1995 through 2010, I worked with the Episcopal Diocese of Quincy, Illinois. And we had a mission that was called Dominican Dreams. And our home base was Sosua in the Dominican Republic. It's along the southern coast of the Dominican Republic. And the Episcopal Diocese of Quincy, Illinois, sponsored us, and our connections were local Episcopalian churches. So it was a great group, 8 Jewish doctors and the Episcopal Church. It was great. It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot, but it was really only 1 or 2 weeks a year. And when we weren't there, there was no mission. So we helped a lot of people, and it was eye-opening experience. But it really was 2 weeks a year. It was my first exposure, and it was a sobering exposure. Next slide. Okay, this was my home away from home. The lad in the blue shirt is Willie, and the woman to my left is his mom. And Willie, his mother, they're obviously Haitian. They live in a mixed community, what you would call a hovel. They live in a little hut with a rough concrete floor and 2 rooms. It's 2 small rooms, a single propane burner stove, no running water. And their house is particularly valuable because they were located a 2-minute run from the communal latrine. And also close to the river where everybody washed and did their laundry and countless people drank water from. Really, their hut was adorned by a crucifix and certificate upon certificate and medal upon medal of academic achievement. Willie was brilliant and hardworking. He was born in the Dominican Republic. His mother was born in Haiti. Although Willie never had seen and still has not seen Haiti, he is not a citizen of the Dominican Republic. He is an illegal resident. He will never be a citizen. He will probably never be a legal resident. He is at risk for deportation at any time. And Willie was for well over a decade, was my sidekick whenever I was there. He spoke 4 or 5 languages very fluently, and he became a certified medical worker. So when I wasn't there, he would still see people and communicate with me, any questions, and take care of them. He was the first in every class that he went to, and he was very devout, and he was extraordinarily hardworking. We'll talk about education a little while. He actually had a scholarship, but because he was illegal, he could not go to university. The DR is one of those countries where just because you're born in the DR doesn't mean you're a citizen. If you're born in the DR and you're Black, you will never be a citizen. In fact, you won't even be a legal resident. His passport was obtained by his mother for him by going to the Haitian embassy. His passport is Haitian. He's never set foot in Haiti in his life. The Dominican Republic has 2 groups of people, Dominicans and Haitians. And let me assure you, the Haitians there have a hard life. But the reason they fled Haiti is because they can at least survive. Next. Yeah, this is the hut next to Willie, and this is a typical girl there. She has no shoes. The hut's tin. The floor is either dirt or unfinished concrete. There might be electric a few hours a day. There might not be. Next slide. Okay, so these are 3 central figures. That's my daughter in the sunglasses. Willie in the orange shirt and River in the red shirt. Willie and River work with me. You see on the left side of the screen, Dream Big. We were there with Dominican Dreams. And what we would do is we would go to different sites and set up medical clinic for the day. And we would get there and there'd be between 350 and 500 people waiting for us when we first arrived. And I had a team of between 5 and 10 docs. And I had been doing this for a while, so I was pretty quick. The newer docs, I told them, take your time, take care of these people. And Willie and I just saw whoever was, we knocked it off pretty quick. And these kids, Willie and River, who worked with us, were tremendous, and we couldn't have done anything without it. Most of these communities, so what we did with Dominican Dreams, 50% of the communities we went to were mixed. 50% Haitian, 50% poor Dominican, really poor Dominican. And 50% were Haitian Bates, and we'll talk a little bit more about Haitian Bates in the future. Next slide. Yeah, this is, so we would set up the clinic, and clinic would run we'd get there around 8:30. So my day was, I get up at 5, and I would take myself running, and I'd run to the dawn with anybody who wanted to join me. Usually that was nobody. And at dawn, I'd come back and lead a yoga class for anybody who wanted it. And then we had breakfast, and then we got on trucks, and we needed trucks because most of these villages were pretty remote, and none of the streets were paved. And, we needed to get there, and we needed to get all our supplies there. And we'd have clinic then from about 8:30 to noon, and then again from 1 to 4. And lunchtime, I would take people who wanted to, and we would see folks who were bedbound. And we'd walk through the village, and this is a typical village, that water you're seeing is sewage, so the slop bucket that they use for the bathroom would be dumped there in the morning. Next picture. Yeah, that's Father Larry, Larry Snyder. He was really the inspiration, the perspiration, and the money for this mission from the Episcopal Diocese of Quincy, Illinois. And he and his wife, Karen, founded this mission. And up until they were medically unable to do this, this was a big part of their lives. And we did a lot of good. Next slide. All right, so we would get there and we would commandeer a church or a school, because those were typically the places that had a floor that wasn't dirt. And we had benches, pews. It's church. So we had places to visit. And the first thing we did when we got there is we dewormed 150 to 200 children, because these kids, every one of them have parasites. And so we would deworm the kids. And then Roxy was the entertainment and clothing committee, my daughter, and she would get these kids drawing, give them stickers, and clothes. Next slide. Yeah, this is Anna. Anna is my Dominican, she's my Dominican girlfriend. She lived in a community in a bate. She's microcephalic. She has a small head. And she probably contracted, her mother probably had Zika when she was pregnant. And her mother's nowhere to be found. But what I learned about these mixed communities is they take care of one another. These people don't know where dinner is coming from tomorrow. They have no idea. But whatever they have, they share. In the morning, our trucks would go out and pick up the kids, Willie, River, and the other volunteers who interpreted for us. And I would hand over a big packet of Cliff Bars because I knew these kids didn't have breakfast. And Willie and River made sure everybody got before they took. And whatever I got, Willie and River, they made sure that everybody was taken care of. And this village made sure Anna was taken care of. And as we entered the village every year, Anna would run up to our truck and we'd let her in because she knew us after all these years. And every night, a family took Anna and made sure she had a place to sleep. Next slide. Yeah. So this gentleman here has muscular dystrophy. And, you know, in the United States, he would have physical therapy and all sorts of services which he would really benefit from and which he really deserved. And nothing like this, of course, exists in the Dominican Republic unless you are one of the 1% who are affluent. So the community built him his own physical therapy facility, you know, and you can see the poles, and he can get around much of the village by holding on and using, you see, he's got tremendous upper extremity strength. And, you know, this is what we found all the time, that these people didn't have anything, but they were very high in spirit. They sang all the time. They prayed all the time, and they shared. And they were extraordinarily kind and generous and thankful. Next. Yeah, so there are no fat kids in the Dominican Republic. Certainly no fat Haitian kids. But they're all happy. They may not have had shoes, but they were all happy. About 5 or 10 years into the mission, Willie and I saw a woman who came in with a daughter. And 2 hours later, she came in with another daughter. And 2 hours later, she came in with another daughter. And at 3 o'clock, before we getting ready to pack up, she came in with the fourth daughter. And I said to Willie, what's the story here? Why is this woman not bringing all her daughters in? And Willie goes, I'm not sure. I don't know. And then it dawned on me that they had one dress at home. And they weren't, you know, when we walked around during lunch doing home visits, most of the kids were wearing panties or underwear and barefoot or in flip-flops. They don't have clothes. So this woman had one dress. So when the doctor comes, she puts a dress on a daughter. They walk from their village to wherever the doctor is. Walk back, she takes the dress, puts it on the next kid, and so until all the kids are seen. So the Episcopal Diocese of Quincy, Illinois, that winter made 400 shift dresses. And next year, Roxy, when girls came, every girl got to pick out a dress. Next slide. Okay, this is Lionel. And we had many success stories, I got to tell you. I'll talk a little bit about the legal residency program later, but one of our goals was not just to treat their blood pressure and their diabetes and all their other medical disorders and parasites, but to try and get some of the kids legal status. And Lionel got legal status. We got him papers. He, of course, was born in the Dominican Republic, never spent a day in his life in Haiti, but he had a Haitian passport. But we were able to get him residency status long enough to graduate high school. And he was able to get a job then on an American tourist, on an American cruise line. So, you know, I don't cruise. Renee cruises. And if you go on a cruise line and you see all these Haitians helping you, a lot of them are in River's situation. And it was great because he was able to support himself. He was able to support his mother and his family back home. Unfortunately, it has a sad ending. You see him, and whenever I was there, of course, he would take off. He would not go on a cruise, and he would come and interpret for us and help us. And driving in the Dominican Republic is a frightening experience. As you see, the roads are either 90% not paved or poorly paved, and a lot of times the vehicles drive without lights to save money. I'm not sure how driving without your lights on saves money, but he was killed when a minivan taxi bus tried to pass someone and rammed right into his motorcycle, and we buried him. Next slide. Yeah. So they don't have much, but you can see the condition of the clothing. Once in a while, we get some clothing, and we bring it down, and we do things like we bring glasses. My dad and other people have connected us with the Lions Club, and I usually go down with 500 plus pair of glasses, and they're a big hit, so people can see. Next slide. Yeah, so you see all sorts of interesting stuff. And besides treating the usual things of diabetes, high blood pressure, asthma, and really the conditions are pretty, for people who understand medicine, it's not unusual for me to see someone with a blood pressure of 210 over 140 or a blood sugar of 500. But we also see different things, and we always have a surgeon with us. And we do minor surgery on a school top table in a church, Next slide. Yeah. And I'll introduce you to Ali in a few minutes. Ali is a friend of mine who is a physician from Iran. And he's been joining me on the missions for about a decade. He lives in Scarsdale now, and he comes with his daughter, Adrina, on the medical missions. And I remember we were up in the hills in the DR, and a father brought in a child who had a 6-digit on their finger. And of course, the Haitians, they're very devout people, but they still, there's still a big voodoo thing there. And this child was ostracized because she was seen as being a little evil with that accessory digit. And a mission from University of Pennsylvania had been through 6 months earlier, and they told them that if they could get them to Philadelphia, they would do the surgery for free. And these people have about as good a chance of getting on the next space shuttle as they do of getting to Philadelphia. So my friend Ali, who was trained in Iran in a lot of things, gave this child a block, a nerve block, and successfully amputated that digit. And the father, we had a insisted on he just wanted to kiss Ali's feet, and we had to pry his hands away from his feet. And then he ran home and he got the next child who also had a digit. So Ali had 2 surgeries that day. Next picture. Yeah, so when we come, the school closes for the day, One of our success stories is one of our kids who was actually Dominican, so he was legal. We got him through college, and he is principal of a huge school sponsored by a Texas mega church, one of those churches with 20, 30,000 members. And these kids get three pair of shirts and 2 shorts, every year. And they arrive at school, they brush their teeth, get a vitamin, get breakfast. And before they leave for the day, they get a late lunch and brush their teeth again. And those are the 2 meals a day these kids get. Next. All right, so there I am running through the streets, the darkened streets of Sosua along the southern coast of the Dominican Republic. And I'm just running. I run, I call them spiritual runs. I just go and I look at the street signs, and all of a sudden I see David Stern Street and Dr. Rosen Street. Actually, it's called Calle David Stern. And Calle David Stern doesn't fit in there, okay? It should be Calle Juan Valdez, something like that. And I'm saying, what the heck's going on here? And I spoke with my mother later. My mother is a Holocaust survivor. And she said, oh, yeah, you had relatives who went to Sosua. And the DR was the only country willing to accept Jews prior to and during World War II, aside from Shanghai, which was an independent city. And they accepted them because they were white, and the DR likes white, and the DR hates black. And this was done via the American Joint Distribution Committee, who purchased 26,000 acres around Sosua. Unfortunately, lack of transportation, and in October 1941, the Nazis cut off Jewish emigration. So there were only about 500 Jews who were able to emigrate to Sosua. Next slide. Most of those who came were elderly German Jews, and it was a temporary stopping place. They really wanted to get to the United States, but for $3,000 they got land and equipment, and the Joint Distribution Committees actually brought in experts from Palestine to teach them communal agriculture. And today, 25 Jewish families remain in Sosua. After the war, most Jews left for the United States. A couple went to Israel. Next slide. And they're actually, when I came upon this in the morning, we were determined. In the afternoon, I went back with Roxy, and there was an old synagogue, which today is an abandoned museum. And, a couple donations, and we were able to actually find the guy who was responsible for keeping it up, and he let us in. Next slide. Yeah, the museum's closed today, but it was pretty, it was neat to walk through, and there was a lot of neat stuff there, and it really was the last thing in the world I expected to find in the Dominican Republic. And in the final analysis, it represents the ultimate triumph of life. These people fled pain and saved themselves. Next slide. Yeah, this is just a picture of an article from the Jewish Standard. The Jewish Standard is the longest independent Jewish newspaper in the United States. It's actually published, I think, in North Jersey, and it's been going for over 70 years. There's an old article in 1990 talking about the 50th anniversary of the settlement there, the Jewish settlement. Next slide. All right. So about 10 or 15 years ago, Father Larry and Karen were just too old to carry on. And, you know, that mission was a full-time job and it folded. And at that point, a friend of mine and I discovered Bold Hope. And Bold Hope was a different kind of mission. It was a mission that went on 365 days a year. And it was located on the other end of Haiti. And we served Haitian bates. And I had been to a couple bates with Father Larry's mission. But this one, 80% of the sites we go to are bates. Maybe 10% or 20% are mixed communities, but mostly we go to bates. And these are communities of Haitian migrant workers who live in the sugarcane fields. They're isolated. They are anywhere from 100 to 250 dwellings. And these dwellings are single room, tin huts with no electric, no running water, and no windows. Occasionally, they have a plywood door, mostly no door. In the center of the bate is an electric outlet where they can recharge a phone or set up a nebulizer for kids with asthma. And electric is 4 to 6 hours a day, maybe. And there's also a pump where they can pump water that you better not drink, but they do. And there is the communal outhouses. And anywhere from 250,000 to 1 million people live there. They have fled Haiti, and they work in the bate. Next slide. So you can live in the bate for free. Incredible, huh? As long as one family member cuts sugarcane by hand with a machete from dawn till dusk. And they're paid anywhere from $2 to $3 a day to do this work, in addition to incredible free housing. Now, unfortunately, in the center of the bate is a little shack, a store, where for double the price that they charge in town, they can buy rice and beans. So they're always in debt. They're always in debt to the company store. Next slide. So the vast majority of the people who live in the bate were actually born in the bate. You know, they have a lot of kids, and none of these kids are legal, although they were born in the bate in the Dominican Republic. They're black, and they will never get citizenship, and they will never get legal status. One of the goals of Bold Hope is to get these kids legal status. So without legal status, you cannot go to school beyond the 3rd grade. So we work with lawyers to get them legal status so they can go to school, so they can get an education. With an education, they can get some skills and move to a mixed community and do things like construction work or agricultural work. So what do these bates do? Well, they harvest sugarcane. And Central Romana Corporation, my dear friends at Central Romana Corporation, are the largest producers of sugar. They sell it to a little known company in the United States called Domino. Maybe somebody's heard of them. So all this sugar goes to the US. And Central Romana was investigated by Congress for human rights abuses because, you know, these conditions are abysmal. And their response was no problem. We'll send all these people back to Haiti and we'll bring in mechanized equipment. And Congress and everybody else dropped the action, and nobody's saying anything. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay. So like I said, we help people not only provide medical care and food subsidies and healthcare subsidies, but we get them access to lawyers. So we want these kids to be able to go to school beyond the 3rd grade, to get a high school education and move to a mixed Dominican communities. And I told you that one of my kids is now a principal of the Texas mega school. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the schoolyard, you know, a little different than an American schoolyard. You know, it's rubble, and that's their soccer ball. And to the left is partially constructed school. In the 10 years that I've been going to that community, it's never been completed. These kids are all happy. They sing. They're joyous. They're happy to play with a soccer ball that would be in a dumpster in the United States. They share whatever they have. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a typical, you know, we set up here for the day. And when we get there, there's 300, 400 people waiting for us. And we make do with what we can. So this is the pharmacy. The floor is rubble. We bring tables, folding tables, so that we can get our medicines all set up. We dispense 6 months worth of medication to everyone who needs medication. Primarily, we're treating diabetes, high blood pressure, parasitic infections, bacterial infections, asthma. People die young there. We treat a lot of machete wounds. Every day we run out of medication. I've never had a day where we didn't run out of medication. So when we get there, we sort the medication out for the 6 or 7 days we're going to be there. And we arrive on site with a full load. And by 12 noon, we start spreading the word out that we're out of this or out of that. And by the end of the day, we're pretty much out of everything except for children's vitamins. Originally, when I started doing this 20 years ago, we used to bring these medications from the United States. And that worked reasonably well, although customs was always a tremendous challenge, because we had to bribe our way through customs. They knew the deal, and you know, everything in there is about money, and the Dominican immigration folks just wanted bribes, and I knew once we paid them bribes that we were going to end up paying them bribes forever. So we would negotiate, and I would say, doesn't your grandmother have diabetes? And they would say, oh, yes, but she's doing all right. Yeah. And I'd say, hey, listen, I have 2 glucose meters that are extra. Could you use them? And of course, they would just sell them on the black market, but that would be the price to bring all this in. And when we partnered with Bold Hope, we discovered a different model. We would try and source most of our medications locally from a Dominican pharmacy. And there were certain things that I had to bring in from the United States. For instance, acetaminophen. You know, you can go to Costco and get huge containers of acetaminophen or children's chewable vitamins really cheap. But everything else, my blood pressure medicine, my diabetes medicine, my antibiotics, antiparasitics, all that stuff, we source locally So we have good contacts now in the DR, and we're helping the local economy as well as the people. So, you know, we do run out of everything by the end of every day. And you know, my first mission, this was just tragic. I mean, my first mission, the first day there, by 2 o'clock, we were out of everything. And I just didn't know what to do. And I had all these kids and adults to see. And all I was able to dispense was hope and vitamins. And I learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is look a woman in the eye and tell her that her 5 children were all healthy and that she was the best mother in the world and how lucky her children were. So we dispense a lot of hope. We really are very good at dispensing hope. Sometimes that's all we have. There is little in the way of justice. 10 years ago, I got a call from River. You remember one of the earlier slides, River was Willie's friend. And I got a call Christmas week that in their mixed community, there was a Dominican who had sick chickens. His chickens were ill, and they were running all over the place, pooping in everybody's house. And Willie had told him, listen, you got to get rid of these chickens. And the guy got drunk and went after Willie, and with a machete cut his face and almost amputated his hand. And they took them, River took him to the local hospital where they bandaged him and told him to come back in a week or two when the hand was black and they would cut it off. I spoke with the boys, and they took the overnight bus to Santo Domingo, the capital. And to make a long story short, they found a plastic surgeon who on Christmas Eve was able to repair Willie's ulnar artery, his medial artery, his ulnar nerve, and his medial nerve. And Willie has 90% function of that hand now. He went to the authorities, who refused to issue an arrest warrant for the guy unless he paid him $250, which of course he didn't have. And I told Willie to be happy that he had his hand. Next slide. So this is Adrina. Adrina is Ali's daughter. She's going to be going to NYU this fall. And we always bring high school kids with us on the mission. You know, my daughters come on the mission. You know, Adrina's on the mission, and they serve. They do a lot. This is, you know, this is, if you look at the sign on the left, this is the eyeglass station, and she would help people find the right size eyeglasses, the right power eyeglasses, and the kids get a lot from being on the mission. You know, it's a lot different than their life at home. We always have at least a handful, up to 10 kids who come on the mission, and they're very helpful. And I just think it's a tremendous experience for them. Next slide. Yeah, occasionally, if you're, you know, not, if you're a little wealthy, you know, I say that in quotes unquote, look at that home. You have a few goats and you can get milk. Otherwise, these people don't see things like milk. You know, that's a typical dwelling. Even the animals, you know, every cat I saw, every dog I saw, every goat I saw, every, you know, occasionally, you know, they would, you know, these people would get together and cook us lunch. And, you know, it was not an Empire chicken. Let me tell you, these were the skinniest chickens I've ever seen. These were not Bell and Evans or Empire chickens. They were the skinniest chickens you've ever seen. And of course, I would always feel tremendously guilty because the last thing I wanted to eat was their chicken. These people need it. When we're on the mission, I make sure everybody gets a decent breakfast at the hotel. It's not much of a hotel, but you get at least a few minutes of hot water, which is all you need since it's hot as heck there anyway. And the air conditioning works. And I make sure everybody gets breakfast. And lunch is usually peanut butter and jelly. And then dinner is we bring in pizza or something. But, you know, I remind myself it's infinitely better than what these people have to eat. Next slide. Yeah, so this is Ali and Adrina and William, their interpreter. So 90% of the people are speaking Creole and 10% Spanish. I'm fluent in medical Spanish. My Creole is very rudimentary, which is why I had Willie. But, you know, what I learned is these are all wonderful, kind people. And they would all say the same thing to me. Welcome home, my doctor. And I saw the same people, you know, year after year after year, and and their families would come and tell me if they had passed. And, you know, people there who are in their 50s look like they're in their 80s. And a lot of times they don't make it to their 60s. And it's very unusual to see somebody in their 70s. They're just ravaged by disease and poverty. But I can't emphasize they're all happy. They're all spiritual. They sing. They have community. This may not be a blue zone, but they have the blue zone community and just tremendous lives of faith. And it really is eye-opening to see this. Next slide. Yeah, so typically when we get there, first thing we do is erect some tarps so these people who have been waiting there for hours, they're told a week ahead of time, you know, that we'll be, you know, what day we'll be arriving where, and we, you know, we offer them some shade, and it's always a huge crowd. It's 80% women and children, huge numbers of children. They all have, you know, a woman there who's 25 years old. It wouldn't be unusual for her to have 5, 6, 7 children. And it's a different culture. It'll often be 5, 6, or 7 guys. And there's rarely a guy, you know, there's no family stability except for the mother. It's all matriarchal. And even for the Dominican men, unemployment is in excess of 25%. So there's, in terms of the men, there's a big problem with alcoholism. So, among other things, we dispense birth control. And, you know, it was interesting having Father Larry tell the women that God understood. They had had enough children. It was time to stop having children. And he would help us dispense condoms and birth control pills. He understood the situation very well. But a woman's life in the DR is very hard, you know, because ultimately it's she who is responsible for feeding and helping these kids live. That's all they have. Them, and if they're lucky, their mother. In the batey, if a guy gets tired of the woman, he simply throws her and her family out of the shack, and they have to find somebody else. It's tough. Next slide. Yeah, so this is what they do here. They go out into the sugarcane fields and by hand with a machete cut sugarcane. They cut it all day from dawn till dusk. And like I said, they're paid between $2 and $3 a day. Then there's an ox-drawn cart. Honestly, a cart drawn by an ox that they loaded onto, and they then take it to there's a railroad that runs through the batey, and they load it onto railroad carts, and it goes from there to Central Romana, which processes the sugar and sends it to the United States. Now, at the end of the harvest, they burn the fields. And I've never been in a batey while the fields are burning, but I'm told you can't breathe. Absolutely cannot breathe. And of course, there's no work then until they replant. So there's no income whatsoever for that period of time. And that can be a couple months. But life is infinitely better for them there than it is in Haiti. So that's why they're willing to do this. And that's why when Central Romana says, you don't like what we're doing? No problem. We'll send them all back to Haiti. Everybody just drops it. Next slide. Yeah, they're beautiful children. And this is ultimately what it's all about, you know? They're beautiful children. They have beautiful mothers. And a frightening future. But we hope to bring hope to them. That's our goal. Next slide. Yeah, so this is my team. I'm in the center. This is Batey 109, one of my favorite places, home away from home. You see the sugarcane fields behind us. We're facing the batey, which is the huts with the where they all live. It's a great team. Most of the we have about 5 to 10 physicians and 5 to 10 nurses, 2 or 3 pharmacists, and lots of volunteers, including, as you see, kids, and plenty of local talent as well. We have boots on the ground in both Haiti and the DR 365 days a year to try and help these people with their medical and legal issues. And so far, I think we've had a lot of success. I think that's the last slide. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain.
Abraham here, I am absolutely blown away and also deeply upset. I mean, what comes into focus for me is the choices humanity has had over the centuries, over human life. You can do Tikkun Olam, or it could live as the jungle where you have rulers and serfs. And we're going through that struggle right now. Thank you so much for what you were doing. I'm utterly moved.
Well, you know, it's the price I pay. I leave. I mean, I leave. I leave the perfect life, and you got to pay rent for that. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. You know, Willie's mother, who was, you know, I would go every year. Willie was at my side, and we would always visit his mother. His mother was frail. She had a cardiomyopathy. She had a weak heart. And when I would get there, she would take $1, which to them is a fortune. This woman, she supported her son, herself, by making candy and selling it to the tourists in Sosua. That's how she supported her son. And she was weak, and she would take $1 and give it to Willie, would run to the little shack that was a community store and buy a soda. And she would take this soda, and she insisted on paying, and pour it into 2 cups for me and Willie. She didn't want any. And she would take the 2 broken chairs from her house and put it in front. And she stood, and Willie and I sat and drank soda. And she died about 10 years ago. You know, when you call an ambulance there, you better have money. And she died because Willie didn't have the 250 pesos that night.
I noticed that Susan had her hand up.
Thank you, Howie, for this very moving presentation. It brings me back to my experience, so much of it the same, in Bolivia. I went there 3 times with also a mission medical group. My brother is a surgeon, my sister-in-law, and we spent 2 weeks down in a very poor area of Bolivia, and I actually have a slide presentation about that. But it really made me so grateful for everything that we have, and also so angry that these people have to suffer this way when there's so much available in the world if people would just share.
You're right. You're right. But you know, the first night of my first mission, I got back to the hotel and I cried. I just cried. By 2 o'clock, we had run out of everything. And I saw all these kids who were obviously hungry and in need, and I couldn't meet their needs. And I came to understand that they would share, that, you know, that the ones who had gotten there earlier would share their medicines with the other ones. And, you know, we can't influence governments, but as individuals, we can do the right thing. And that's all we can do. And maybe that's all we need to do. None of us are particularly, if you'll excuse my French, hot shit. We were born, we dropped out of a vagina white in the right country. And we're blessed. And when you got a blessing like that, I think you're obligated to give back. It's that simple. I mean, but for the grace of God, I could have been born in a bate.
That's right.
Miriam has her hand up.
I had told you, Howie, that I went to Haiti in 2011 with the American Jewish World Service. And I learned an awful lot about the history of the country. And one of the things that struck me the most was how the average lifespan of a slave, an enslaved person in Haiti, was 2 years. And so they kept bringing more and more people over. This is when the French were in control. And eventually, there were so many slaves and so few French that there was a revolt. And they won, and they established a democracy and set up a government. This was before the Civil War. And it was the last thing that the United States wanted was a enslaved people's democracy within shooting distance of the United States. And the United States and France went in and totally destroyed the harbor, the port of Prince Harbor. And I think that's at the stage for what has been going on ever since. And all the kids that I saw there, they all looked so well dressed and happy. It's the same thing that I saw, these kids that were going to school in Haiti. And we visited the tent cities, which were just ghastly. And the women talked about how men would come in at night and slash the back of the tents and come in and rape them. And it was just horrible. And yet the people look well dressed and happy.
They look well dressed because I'm going to tell you why. Two comments. One, Haiti was doomed from the start because they had to buy their freedom from the French. Although they should never have had to. France should have paid them reparations, go into debt to buy their freedom. So the country was doomed from the start because they were crushed by debt. Two, some communities in Haiti and the DR, you see kids that are well dressed. And I'm going to tell you how this happens because I've witnessed it. When tomorrow there are going to be 2 million t-shirts from either Kansas City or Philadelphia. The t-shirts say Super Bowl champions. Now, whichever team loses, this is true, whichever team loses, those million t-shirts, which are unsaleable, are going to be donated. And they're going to be put on a container and sent down to the DR and Haiti, and a dump truck from it used to be USAID, God knows who it's going to be now, is going to pick that dump truck up, take it to a poor community in the middle of the community. The dump truck goes up and out comes 1,000 t-shirts. So when I was there, I'm an athlete. I would laughingly see people wearing Philadelphia Triathlon 2010 t-shirts. And I'd go up to them and I'd say, wow, you were there. I don't remember seeing you. But that's how they get well dressed, because there's going to be 1 million t-shirts from the Super Bowl, the team that lost, that the t-shirts are completely worthless. They can't sell them for a nickel, and they're going to end up in the DR or Haiti. And that ends up for all events. So all events, when they have these excess, whatever, that's what they do. They dump this, and I'm sure they get some sort of tax, whatever it is. Yeah.
I have one other thing. I have a brother-in-law who goes over to Haiti a couple of times a year. He flies into KHN in the north, and he works with a group called Bloom Haiti, Building Leaders Using Music Education. And he teaches music camps there. And I mean, if you look at their website, they have orchestras of kids playing violins and cellos. And I don't know how they can tune an instrument in that humidity. But there's all these wonderful things that are going on, but it's just shadowed by all the horrors of the way people have to live and the fear. But in the north, there are these music camps, and a little money goes a long way in Haiti if anyone wants to donate. Bloom Haiti.
I noticed Roxanne's hand up also.
Let me just respond. We have an orchestra I have a video that I didn't include. We have an orchestra of kids there, and they play, their instrument is empty water bottles. And they play empty water bottles. You would think it would be a symphony, you know, and they practice every day with these empty plastic water bottles. And they make all sorts of beautiful music. Thank you. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Roxy. I'm Howie's daughter. And that was an amazing presentation. Really, I'm just so humbled and grateful for being able to go and experience working with everybody there. What really stood out to me is that they really don't want materialistic things. They are very happy and content with what they have. There was a couple of times that I would take out some of the translators, and they would tell me that they were not happy doing that because their families were not doing that. And the girls, I used to give stickers, and just how grateful they were and excited they were to receive a sticker. And the kids that didn't receive a sticker, they'd share it with. And you know, it's one of the most humbling experiences. Willie's mother, when I went there for the first time, she gave me a dolphin. And you know, it just means the world to me of how happy these people are, and how they don't take, and how they don't want much other than to be happy and safe and healthy. So thank you.
One of my favorite parts of the mission was having Roxy there.
I'm new to this, but I have a question about funding. Where does most of the funding come from to support what you do and the materials you bring?
Well, Bold Hope is a local organization out of Doylestown, and we raise our own funds. So, you know, everyone who goes on the mission pays their own expenses. And in addition, I sponsor a child for, I think it's $56 a month. That child's family gets food supplementation, and that child and their family will get legal representation, so that that child can go to school beyond the 3rd grade, get some residency permits, hopefully get through high school and be able to get a job and move to a mixed community out of the Bate. But all our funding is from individuals. A few corporations match, you know, but if you go to Bold Hope's website, just Google Bold Hope, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, you know, we get no US aid funding or anything like that.
Yes, Susan.
Yeah. I was also touched about how happy the people seem amidst, you know, terrible, terrible poverty, and it's their faith that keeps them going. And that was what impressed me the most. I currently am teaching Haitians and Latinos at Mercer County Community College. So I don't know what their status is here, or if they're going to be sent back, or if they're legally here. I mean, the college isn't allowed to ask. I don't know if anybody knows what the status is for Haitians who've come over to the United States, but you know, I'm worried for them because they're the kindest, sweetest, most respectful people, and they really appreciate getting, you know, an education in English. It's grant funded, and they're able to, and there's a waiting list of like 400 people to get into this program.
Last week, they had special status up until last week when it was revoked. After Willie was attacked and sustained all those injuries, we tried to get Willie a visa to come to the United States for further medical care. And we did, through the assistance of our local senator, get him an interview with the U.S. consulate. And basically, he went to the consulate and they told him that he's not getting a visa to the United States without him showing them a checkbook or a passbook with at least $30,000 in it and the deed for a house worth $50,000. He's not under any circumstance. Now, you and I can go to the DR and buy a visa for $30 and an airline ticket in about 30 minutes. But for them to come here, no way. They got to show that they have sufficient funds, a lot of funds. That's just the way it is. Well, listen, thank you, everybody. You can reach me via the shul, share my email, and look forward to seeing you all.
Also, I wanted to mention that this is being recorded and it's an opportunity for friends and relatives to see this and to also be moved by this and perhaps open their own checkbooks.
Thank you.
Could you share the website? What is it again?
Bold Hope, BOLD Hope. They're in Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
are grateful to you. Thank you so much, Howie.
Thank
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it.
Very
Yeah, thank you. Good work.